This week, there were a couple of new product launches, specifically around the world of Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. Supabase launched automatic embeddings as part of their Postgres database, and Cloudflare launched Auto RAG, which is also built around automating the embedding process. So it's a great time for us to think about what Retrieval Augmented Generation is, if you're not familiar with it. And at the same time, new LLM models are being released with massive context windows. So Llama from Meta, Llama 4 was announced this week with a context window of 10 million tokens. And Google's Gemini 2.5 was launched recently with a 1 million token limit, and that is going up to 2 million tokens. So as we firstly learn about RAG and then think about what does that mean in the context of much larger capacity that these models can accept. So Retrieval Augmented Generation. I want you to imagine that you are at a dinner party with some friends. And so here is the table, and here are all of your friends sat around it. Now you're having a discussion about holidays. You want to plan where you're going this year, and someone mentions Venice as a great destination. Well, as you're chatting around, you can all use your own personal knowledge, and that's all you've got to go on, really. You may have watched a TV program about it. You may have even been there on a day trip. And so this is where the conversation is going. But one of your friends studied history of art at university, and so they're extremely knowledgeable. And back at home, they've got a huge stack of books that they accumulated during their studies. So as the conversation develops and someone asks about a specific bridge or a specific museum, this knowledgeable friend runs back, and this is my bad drawing of a bookcase. There we go, that's a bookcase. This knowledgeable friend is able to run back and pull out the relevant book for that bridge or that particular building, and then race back to the dinner party and is able to answer that question. Oh, well, that bridge was built by this person in this style, and it was built in this time. And so the conversation continues. And this is really what Retrieval Augmented Generation is. The retrieval is, I'm going to go and get some pre-existing information that I have. Augmented, I'm going to combine that with my knowledge of the conversation and any knowledge that I've already got. And then generation, I'm going to feed that answer back in to the group. In a business context, in an AI context, we're thinking about maybe getting information about a customer, about an invoice, about an employee, about a supplier, and then feeding that back into the conversation that we are having. Okay, so this is Retrieval Augmented Generation, and it has primarily been used so far, to get access to information that the LLMs have not been trained on, but also to deal with the fact that our LLMs have got very short memories, or historically have had short memories. So what is a context window? A context window explains or describes the amount of information or knowledge or memory that an LLM like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude can hold as part of its individual conversation. So if we think about going to ask Google a question, historically you go and ask Google a question, it doesn't know what you were doing earlier. It doesn't know what you're thinking of doing next. It's just answering the question that is placed right in front of you. But when you go and speak to a human being in your team, they know a lot about you. They know the other projects you're working on. They know what team you used to be in. They know what your career aspirations are. They know what other projects you're working on. And that means that the richness of the answer that you get from them is a lot more valuable. It's based in more of your reality and your experience. And so as we're starting to use AI more and more and more in our work conversations, we need that context. We don't want to be going and asking a random Google search, what is this customer's last invoice? We want it to be based on the actual detail that we've got. And so Retrieval Augmented Generation has been one of those ways that we approach that, is by going and getting the information and bringing it back. Now, in a context window that becomes near infinite, the next question might be, well, hang on, instead of going out to the library each time, why don't I put the library right in the middle of the dinner table? So instead of going out to go and get the book each time, we're going to have it right in the middle of the table, and we've got access to all of that information. Well, whilst theoretically possible, because with Llama 4, 10 million context, 10 million token context, with Gemini 2.5, a million context. So yes, in theory, you can start to bring all of that knowledge in every single time you're having a conversation. But let's think about the reality. This takes a lot of time, because your poor friend has got to go and bring all of these books to the dinner party. Not all of these books are going to be relevant to the discussion. So she may have bought books about French Renaissance art, may have bought books about Cubism, but that's not relevant to the conversation about Venice. And so it's very inefficient and slow, and it starts to disrupt the rest of the conversation, because in the middle of the table, there's 100 books that people have got to get through. Now, this is the same thing with AI and infinite context windows. Whilst theoretically, we can bring all of our customer knowledge, all of our product knowledge, all of our accounts and finance details and contracts, and we can bring that to every single conversation, what that does is just cloud the actual question that we've got. So what I think you're going to find is that RAG, this concept here, is going to continue to be valuable. But instead of it being there just to solve some of the memory issues that the LLMs have had, it's going to be able to provide you with a lot more context over a much longer period of time. So the way that I would think about this in an enterprise context would be thinking about, finance, legal, product, HR, technical support. All of these have got their own libraries, their own bookshelves of information about your people, about your customers, about your suppliers, and about your products. And what you want to be able to do is to give your AI tools that you're developing the ability to go and check in on each of these different bookcases, depending on the conversation that is being had over a longer period of time and over multiple domains. So hopefully that is helpful. Retrieval Augmented Generation is the ability to go and pull out specific information that is going to feed the conversation. And even in a world of infinite context, dumping all of that into the middle of the dining room table is not an effective solution. So you want to complement these larger context windows with accessing the information when you need it.